Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Alan with another broadcast of the More Like Morning Digest. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers for the interaction on yesterday's video, as well as you guys being open-minded enough to actually digest it. And it shows me that you guys have extremely amazing character, and I'm lucky to have you guys as a community. Now, with that being said, you can help the channel grow by liking, subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications, but I ask that you share the content. You'll find a link for my BitChute below, as well as 2 donation links. If you're so inclined, I'd appreciate it. Now, I haven't really talked a whole lot about this crisis or what's been going on in the news and the media lately, and there's a reason for it. I wanted to get my narrative straight before I presented it to you guys, because you deserve the best, right? Now, my theory behind all of this is going to start with a personal experience that I've had. One of my friends, right, his mom called the doctor and complained about having trouble breathing. She went to go see her general practitioner, and he determined that she was likely to have the COVID, right? So he sends her to the hospital, and she's in the hospital for about 2 weeks. She was never intubated or anything like that. However, they did lung imaging on her, and that's how they determined that she had it, right? They never ran a test to definitively prove it. Now, her condition gets better. They send her home. Now, my friend lives with his mom. As soon as the doctor told her she was likely to have it, he contacted his boss. His boss said, "Screw that, you're coming to work." So my friend gets in his car, goes to work, sits in the parking lot, and straight up shows the paperwork about his mom to the employer and says, "I'm not coming inside. I have to quarantine for 14 days. The guy said, "We'll be back out to see you in a little bit." An hour passed by, so my buddy went home. Now, my buddy's sitting at home, gets a call from his office at work saying, "We expect you here. Your mom's home from the hospital. You're not taking care of her. We need you at work. You don't have it. She does." They never tested him because he doesn't have any symptoms. And according to Massachusetts, if you're not presenting symptoms, they're not going to test you. But according to guidance and regulations from the state, he's supposed to quarantine for 14 days after his mom's tests come back clear, right? And mind you, his mom hasn't been tested at all yet. She doesn't even know if she's definitively positive for it. So he gets a hold of the Board of Health, tells the Board of Health the whole deal and rigmarole about his business wanting him to work. Well, it turns out that his boss, the guy that owns the company, right, his girlfriend has had the virus the entire time and has known that she's had it and still came to work. Now, my buddy thinks that he got it from her, etc., and then gave it to his mom. Now, mind you, I don't agree with the whole germ theory or how this thing spreads. The real concerning issue about this for me is how quickly the Board of Health was on top of this with their tracers as soon as they were made aware that this company was playing games when it came to quarantining and regulations. They asked him all kinds of questions about masks, social distancing, etc., 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 asking him to report on his company. Well, obviously he was a little pissed off, so he told the Board of Health everything, told him about the boss, told him about his girlfriend, etc., etc. Well, it turns out that not only did they contact everybody that works in that warehouse, and they sent a team full of people down there from the Board of Health to get everything straightened out, they closed down the entire shop, and now they're running all of the cell phones for everybody that works at that building for contact tracing. And God only knows the can of worms that this is going to open up. Because the way that I see things going is they are going to forcibly test every single person that's had contact with anybody in that warehouse, and then it extends out even farther than that. Anybody who had contact with the people in the warehouse, all of the people they had contact with, so on and so forth. But what this does is it sets a precedent for contact tracing to override the Fourth Amendment, right? And this is a big problem. You have to understand something. California, naturally, is the most progressive, far-left socialist state in the entire country. And the powers that ought not be use California as a guinea pig for how the rest of the country is going to react for something. Now, California has extended their lockdown for 3 months, moving it out into August right now, okay? Massachusetts is the California of the East Coast, and it's not too far behind. I honestly think we're going to see a long extended lockdown here as well pretty soon. The rest of the country seems to be opening up. But what the models in California and Massachusetts are going to do is going to set a precedent for how contact tracing is going to work. Now, those programs have to take a little bit to get set up, okay? Now, what I think is we're going to see happen is we're going to see a lull in enforcement of this lockdown for a certain period of time. Things are going to move back to a semblance of normal. We're never going to get there, though. Now, if you notice, all of these doctors out there are talking about a second wave of this virus incoming. And yes, we have to be worried about a second wave, but it's not the second wave of the virus, and I'm going to explain to you why. All indicators of what the media has been putting out there right now are setting the American mind up to be programmed to expect a very, very bad second wave of this virus coming through. Now, the reason I say this is because over the last week, on multiple news sources, I have seen them talking about next winter being extremely brutal compared to anything we've seen in recent time periods. On top of that, they're talking about extreme droughts happening in California, further exacerbating the food crisis that's already going on there, etc., etc. It's almost as though they are programming Americans to expect the absolute worst case scenario. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, we have a bill being pushed to give everybody $2,000 a month, backdated to March for God knows how long forward. What incentive does that set up for people to go back to work? Absolutely none. And all of this is being done by design. Meanwhile, you don't have a whole lot of coverage about things like the First Amendment being revoked inside of New York City, i.e. they are no longer allowed to gather for protests, right? Things just don't seem to be making any sense unless you account for a bigger event happening in the near future. And I hate to say it, but I think this may have been a dry run before the big one pops off. Now, we've noticed that there's also been a lot of stuff breaking in the media pertaining to Obamagate, General Flynn, all of that. That's another video entirely. But there's no coincidence that all of that is starting to happen right around the same time that Americans, again, are starting to live real life. Right? This stuff started dropping right when the country started to reopen. And you know what? The reason is because they don't want the American people at home watching this news drip every single day. Because if you notice, the governors that had the harshest lockdowns were Democratic governors, right? And it just so turns out that they start to ease their lockdowns right when the media cycle starts to get full of everything that vindicates what President Trump has been saying for the last 5 years. That's neither here nor there. I want you guys to understand you're going to have a set amount of time to actually prepare for what's coming. You're going to see a lull in the lockdown between now and I'd say October, November, right? Maybe right after the election or right before the election is when this second wave is going to kick off. And you don't have to be worried about the virus. You have to be worried about the control mechanisms that are going to be put into place, i.e. contact tracing, i.e. phone tracking, i.e. having to have paperwork for essential travel, etc., etc. And it's not heartening to be seeing our local cops arresting citizens for opening up their businesses, right? And even when the cops don't arrest the citizens, and even when a judge says that the citizen has every right to open their business, what do these governments resort to? They resort to pulling menial licenses that you opted into, but ultimately made you liable to a contract with said government. Like this barber in Michigan that opened up. The court said he can stay open, so what did the town do? The town pulled his barber's license. Same exact thing that happened to the bar owner in Texas, right? Opened his business, the judge said he could keep it open, they pull his liquor license. You're gonna see a vast overreach, a very vast overreach of power, because they realize if they ever lose it, they're not getting it back again. We've backed wounded animals into a corner, and this is literally their last stand. Either they gain control of the United States through this